All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here, we're doing our 2025 preview and prediction for the Louisville Cardinals. Looking at this coaching staff. Familiar faces. Jeff Brom's back as head coach. Brian Baum will be in his third year of offensive coordinator. And then Ron English will be calling the defensive plays. Pretty solid offseason. 68th in the high school ranks isn't all that ideal, but they pulled in another pretty good portal class last season. It was a major success, going 9-4, winning the Sun Bowl in a thriller. And they also beat Clemson, who obviously won the conference in pretty nasty fashion as well. Looking at this Louisville offense, this is a group that returns 4 starters, but they have a lot of excitement. And it starts with Miller Moss coming over from USC. Now, this is a guy who first made his name a couple of years ago in San Diego in a bowl game, Nick, for USC, when he absolutely torched Louisville, put on a clinic that day. And I think that's maybe one reason why they're so enticed with him. But I think he's a perfect fit for this scheme. Good short to intermediate accuracy, throws with confidence against tight windows. Good distributor of the football, has a good arm. I think he can throw on the run very well. Has nice, the deep accuracy and the arm strength is not the best. The vision can be poor at times. Doesn't always step up in the pocket. Diag versus zone is inconsistent. I think this is a good QB, though. I think at USC, you have to be great to play QB, and that's why he was forced out. He ends up at Louisville, Nick. And this kid's playing style just reminds me so much of the quarterbacks that Brom had at Purdue and the skill set that he possesses. That's why I think this is such a perfect fit, and I think he's going to have a phenomenal season.
Jeff Brom's a phenomenal quarterback coach. I mean, he got Tyler Shuck taken in the second round by New Orleans this year. That's a pretty impressive feat considering that quarterback had been around college football for a while and was, not super impressive. He had a good year last year at Louisville, but nowhere near, I think, drafting in the second round. And I think Miller Moss is another quarterback that Brom can develop. He's a bit of a quarterback whisperer that has opportunities to kind of turn them into stars. He was a star quarterback himself back in the day, had a brief run in the XFL, in the original XFL, and now he's back coaching his alma mater, and I think he's doing really good things here so far. 10-4 in 2023, 9-4 last year with that win in the Sun Bowl, which was a very electric game, I might add. And now he's got a quarterback in Miller Moss he can plug in and really find success with early on. I think Miller Moss is a great player. I know he got benched at USC. I didn't think that was the right move, but I can understand what Lincoln Riley was thinking. Before he got benched, 2,500 yards passing, 18 touchdowns and 9 picks. You mentioned that bowl game against Louisville where he absolutely showed out and torched them in that game, which was a big opportunity for him to kind of make his mark early on. That was a game where I really didn't think that USC would be competitive at all. He ended up going for 372, 70% comp rate, and 6 touchdowns in that bowl win. There were some highlights last year, right? There were some moments where he did look solid. I think the game against Rutgers, a blowout win where he had 71% comp rate, 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns in that one. He looked really confident and comfortable in that one. The game against Maryland, I know they lost that game, but 336, 68% comp rate, 3 scores in that one, and a win against Wisconsin, 308 yards and 3 scores in that one as well. The turnovers are certainly an issue, right? The 3 interceptions at Washington was not a good showing for him, and that ultimately ended his USC career. If he can cut down on the turnovers, be a little more accurate, a little more comfortable in the pocket, and don't really rush himself into tough situations, take his time, go through his reads, go through his motions, develop with the system around him, protect the ball. That's really the big key thing here, right? Just protect the ball. Make sure you find a way to protect the ball, I think, is the biggest thing I want to say to Miller Moss. But he's a guy that's been around college football for a while. He's a veteran of the sport at this moment in time. I think it's a perfect fit for him at Louisville. I think he'll plug into this offense just fine and be a really strong asset for this offense.
And the supporting cast around Moss is tremendous. You're going to start with this running back room. Isaac Brown, this guy was a breakout player as a freshman last year, 1,100 rushing yards, 7 yards per attempt. The film on him is highly impressive. He uses leverage and blocking scheme very well. Home run speed as well. Does a good job finding run lanes at the second level. Skill as a pass catcher, but he wasn't used in that role a whole lot. I think you want to see more consistent ball security. Overall, a really impressive guy at 190 pounds. Behind him, Duke Watson also was heavily impressive in his true freshman season. Really went off in the month of November as well to end the year of nearly 600 yards and 8 touchdowns. Keon Brown enters his third year and is a nice, efficient runner in his third season in the program. Phenomenal room here. Good talent. The production from last year was phenomenal. This is a great start to what's a really good supporting cast.
Yeah, I feel like the Cardinals are always able to get good running backs. Even under Scott Satterfield, they were able to kind of put together a solid running back room, even though those teams that he coached were not very good. And now with Jeff Brom, they're better off here. Isaac Brown, a really good guy to lead the way. A huge breakout last year for him, almost 1,200 yards rushing, 7.1 yards per attempt, 11 scores, 90 yards per game on the ground was really impressive. The 152 and only one grab on 30, or one touchdown is on 30 grabs. It's not great in the passing game. You want to see more there, considering I think the wide receiver room is just a little bit weak here. Hopefully he can find his way involved in that. Duke Watson was solid as well, 600 yards rushing, about 8.9 yards per carry on limited attempts, which is a very impressive number. 7 touchdowns for him, about 50 yards per game as well. Really impressive number on that regard. Brown was solid as well, 245, 5.2, and 3 scores for him. So overall, this is a deep running back room. They have a bunch of different names here that I think could really provide and be strong here. Shamani Gates for them, the depth chart could be solid for this offense as well. A young running back room, certainly a group that doesn't have a lot of miles on the wheels there, so that's could also be beneficial as well. A bit of experience, but man, this is a major upside. These guys could certainly boom and be absolute stars coming into the season.
And they go ahead and move to the pass catchers. Colin Lacey, this is a guy who's going to headline the room, a forgotten player who's one of the top additions in last year's class. Remember back in 2023, had 1,300 receiving yards for South Alabama, was injured at the beginning of last season, comes back in the 4 games he played. He had 3 of 50-plus yards. He was held out the rest of the year to go ahead and keep that last year of eligibility intact. Came back and had a touchdown in the bowl game. This is a guy that's certainly forgotten. A player who's versatile, can play outside, mainly in the slot though. Good intermediate weapon with good ball tracking and yards after catch. Doesn't quite have elite speed, but is still impressive in that regard. Runs a great slot fade as well. So I think Colin Lacey, a forgotten player here, that's going to have great production. Chris Bell, 6'2", 220. He's coming off a pretty impressive season on the other hand. Had some really meaningful performances this past year. Dakari Collins arrives from NC State, had about 700 yards in his career. Bobby Golden, 185-pounder from Akron, had nearly 500 yards for the Zips last season. Trayshawn Hurry also had slightly short of 500 yards for Weber State this past year. Antonio Meeks didn't play much all season, but he did have a 28-yard touchdown in the bowl game on just 1 reception. Chris Hughes, Jaden King didn't get on the field much last year. Nate Kiersky will step in as the top tight end, who had some pretty good production in the back half of the season. They also have Jaleel Skinner, a former touted recruit, but has not really done much in his career. And they also got Jacob Stewart, 6'5", 230, had nearly 300 yards for San Jose State last year. So pass catching depth is not all that great. They have a phenomenal duo in Bell and Lacey, though, Nick, and I think they're going to do a good job of getting everybody involved, including guys like Collins and Golden. So I think this is a pretty solid receiving group. The top 2, though, one of the better duos in the country.
Some of the depth is certainly concerning, but overall, I still think this is a very strong unit. That starts with Lacey. He was phenomenal at South Alabama in 2023. 1,300 yards there, 14.5 yards per grab, 7 scores. If he's fully healthy, he's going to be an absolute major difference maker for this offense this year. I'm curious to see how exciting he looks early on. I think Chris Bell's a phenomenal player, 735 for him, 17.1 yards per grab, 4 scores. Really impressive numbers there. I think he's a big asset that could be really solid in the deep game. Dakari Collins comes over from NC State, 314. 13.1 and 2 scores for him last year. He should find a way to be involved. 6'4", 214. I think he's a bigger guy that will be really solid at that wide receiver Z position. They bring in Trayshawn Hurry coming over from San Jose State, 480 for him, 17.2 yards to grab and 2 scores. He's another deep play threat. So 2 big deep play threats right there. Bobby Golden comes over from Akron. He looked okay at times for the Zips last year. 445, 14.4 yards to grab and 1 score for him as well. He's a name that could potentially break out in this conference. And they bring McWilliams from Minnesota, who didn't do a whole lot. Terrence McWilliams, that is, he didn't do a whole lot at Minnesota. As a true freshman, he comes over for some more depth pieces there. Overall, I like what they have. Antonio Meeks is not a bad player that they have back in this room, a veteran who's been around the program for a while. They have some solid tight end options as well. Jaleel Skinner could be solid. Nate Kursky could be a good tight end for this offense. The depth is a little bit weak. Certainly, I think I'm questioning that, but overall, I think this is still a productive unit that will really shine with Miller Moss throwing the ball.
Now move to the offensive line. Trevonte Sylvester returned to left tackle. He was below average last year, but they went to the portal to bring in some competition. McKylan Pounders, who himself in 1,400 career snaps across 3 years, was not that good. Lance Robinson missed last season after moving to guard, but was a pretty good right tackle in Houston and at Middle Tennessee back in 21 and 22, respectively. Looks like he'll be at left guard this season, though. He's in a battle with Jordan Church, who was great for FIU at left guard at 6'4", 310, so he's going to be the penciled-in starter. Pete Nigra was an outstanding center, giving up only 1 sack and being very stout in the run game. Rasheed Miller likely to be the right guard, had nearly 300 snaps across right guard and right tackle last fall, but he really wasn't all that good. Nair Jackson himself was not all that great at FIU as a starting guard the past 2 years. Mamadi Moussa was a 3-year starter, 2 at left tackle this past year, and then at left guard at 6'4", 305. May stay on the interior, but right tackle is possible as well. Ransom McDermott, a redshirt freshman, was the next 3 stars also in the fold. Also picked up 2 more vets, in starters, and Carter Gilliamu, Michael Flores. Not a bad offensive line. Should be a quite good group. I think the interior offensive line is going to be incredibly strong. I think the tackles might be average, but not bad one bit. Seems like they have some nice depth here, and they have some nice versatility as well, Nick. So I think they're going to figure things out on the offensive line just fine.
Yeah, the tackle position kind of worries me, Ponders and Musa. I think that's a bit of an interesting adding those two guys. Sylvester and McDermott maybe could find a way to get some reps there. I'm a little worried about the tackles in the interior. Strong, Robinson, Nigra, and Miller are all really talented players. I think will be really solid. Robinson has a lot of high-end experience that he returns. Overall, I think this is a middle of the pack unit in the ACC. I think it's a bit of a weakness. Certainly, the tackles are a weakness, but I don't think it's a massive liability. I think these backs are going to be able to overcome that. This is an offense that was high-flying last year. They scored a lot of points, and they were able to run the ball at a pretty high clip considering the type of scheme they run as well. 36.5 points per game last year. I think the offensive line will be strong enough to help out and really put this offense in good position.
Now you look at the offensive verdict for Louisville. I think the Cardinals have a really good offense. I think Moss is a great fit. They have a strong run game led by a deep backfield. Pass catchers are pretty good as well, and even if the offensive line doesn't wow you with talent, they're still going to coach them up, and they're going to play quite well in this conference. B+ for me. Honestly, I feel like you can even go higher than that, but I definitely think the offensive tackles could cause some issues for them. And we still got to see this all come into true form in terms of chemistry, Nick. I definitely think their upside's a lot higher than a B+, but that's where we're going to start for right now.
Yeah, I think a B+ is where we start. I think this is a unit that could be really strong in the future. I'm very high on Miller Moss still. I think he's a quarterback that's got a lot of opportunities to grow. I saw a lot in him at USC that I liked. I saw a lot I didn't like, but I think he's still a player that could really be a dominant quarterback that was expected of him coming out of high school. I think he'll be really solid here. I like what they have at wide receiver, even if the depth's a little limited. I love what they have at running back, a phenomenal unit that should be very strong this year. O-line, I'm a little bit bullish on. I'm a little weak on that O-line as well, but overall, I think this is still an offense that will be firing at a high clip, should still be a top 10 offense in points per game, should improve the pass yard per game number as well. Overall, I think this is, they'll clear 450 yards per game. They'll probably clear 36 points per game. Again, they'll be a very strong unit that should produce in this conference and should lead to success for this offense.
Yeah, I definitely think they should probably be an A-. We'll go ahead and make that adjustment there. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, they returned 4 starters on this side as well. The defensive line, we'll start with them. Wesley Bailey comes over from Rutgers. He was a highly impressive pass rusher for them over a couple of seasons. Only saw a few games last year, though, due to injury. Clev Lubin was an elite edge in his own right for Coastal Carolina last season. He came up with 10 sacks and 12 tackles for loss. Adonijah Green returns after playing around 200 snaps. He struggled versus the run, but wasn't that bad of a pass rusher, and he did bring some intensity to the table. Micah Carter only played in 2 games last fall. Also got Justin Beatles, a 270-pound defensive end from New Mexico State, who was an average performer. Look at the interior defensive line. Jordan Gerard, 6'2", 300, has been a great run defender throughout his entire career. Was not as dynamic last year as he was at FIU, but I really think he's going to impress this fall. Renee Conga, 6'4", 300, was highly impressive versus the run. Had his inconsistencies, though, across 300 snaps. Jerry Lawson comes over from Abilene Christian. He was a good 2-year starter, being quality versus the run at 295 pounds. Denzel Lowry was a good 3-year starter for Old Dominion. He was also good versus the run, also an efficient tackler in the hole. Only 6 career missed stops. Good room here. Depth on the interior offensive line, I think, stands out. I think they have good proven pass rushers as well. Pretty good upside on this side of the ball as well, Nick, because of this defensive line. And I know last year they kind of disappointed me because I thought they were incredibly deep, but they weren't bad by any means, and I still think that they can accomplish a lot of things. So as long as they don't look like they did last year, they're going to be just fine when it comes to the front 4.
A transfer-heavy unit, which I don't necessarily love, but I do think there's some interesting pieces here. I'll start with the returners. Gerard, 22 total tackles last year, 4 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. He was pretty solid, a good guy against the run. Renee Conga was better against the run, 20 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, while Green had 12, 3, and 1. For his statistics there, I think those were really strong. And then the portal adds. I don't love revamping it entirely, but I think they added some really interesting pieces from the portal. You start with Cleb Lubin, who was really solid at Coastal Carolina last year. Previously was at Army as well. He's a guy that's got high upside. I think he's a solid player. Wesley Bailey was really good at Rutgers over a couple different seasons. The product out of the Canadian capital of Ottawa was not bad. 8 tackles for him last year, a sack, 3 QB hurries. He had 27 total tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 5 QB hurries in 2023. Curious to see how he progresses, get back to full health this year. Jerry Lawson from Abilene Christian should be a pretty solid add if he can make the jump up comfortably. Denzel Lowry's not a bad add from Old Dominion, 51 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 QB hurries last year, had 46, 5, and 3 the year prior to that. And then they also added a Justin Beatles from New Mexico State, who I thought was really solid. He's bounced around college football, 6'5", 270. He's not a bad asset either. I like the depth here. Micah Carter's not bad either as a guy. Xavier Porter, a younger player that may get involved as well on this team. I like what they have in the interior. I like what they have out there outside on the edge as well. Overall, a pretty solid defensive line here that should get some good numbers against the run and in terms of pass rush.
Now we move to the middle of the Cardinal defense. They're going to return both starters at linebacker. You start with Stanquan Clark. This guy's a great run defender. Nice strength to get off blocks or meet running backs. comes through gaps with force, gains speed with momentum. I think this guy's a legit force at the line of scrimmage. Initial burst, not great, but he can stretch runs to the boundary. Can at times have poor vision versus RPO option runs. TJ Quinn returns alongside his dance partner, though. He was good versus the run, about average in coverage, though. Led the team in tackles. Caleb Harry was a good rotational backer in 2 years of 200-plus snaps each at Tennessee. TJ Capper's next 200 ranked recruit / 4-star, only saw a few snaps last year, but should start to see the field in extensive action this year. Good room here, good experience. I love the good to back the top two producers, and I think they have good depth as well. The linebackers are good to me.
Yeah, I love what they have here. Probably my favorite part of this defense. Your top two tacklers back there are both linebackers. TJ Quinn, 82 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, a pass breakup. He was really solid last year. Clark was solid as well. 76 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2 picks, 2 pass breakups. Really impressed with that. TJ Capers, a younger player who finally got on the field last year. Some experience as he's newer to the program. 6 total tackles for him. Had a pick that he returned for 30 yards as well, so that's not bad. They bring in Perry from Tennessee. They get him back into the state of Kentucky. He had 26 total tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss last year. He may find a way to get some rotational reps. They're high on Khalid Perry as well. Like this unit a lot. I think this is a really solid unit here with great returning starters and then some nice depth as well. I'm really happy with that linebacking core. I think it's a strength for this defense.
And I moved to the secondary group that was 100th nationally last year against the pass. Rodney Johnson, a phenomenal corner, was highly impressive as a 3-year starter for South Alabama. He arrives to be a starter here for the Cardinal. Jabari Mack, he saw extensive action in 2 years for Jack State. Justin Agu comes over from ULL. He was poor versus the run, but against the coverage, he was about average. Ramon Mosby started the bowl game, but wasn't all that good. Antonio Watts, he was a real standout in the slot, good in coverage and in the run game. Joseph Jefferson will likely be his backup. He was poor in 200-plus snaps from Purdue last season, though. Safety group adds a few transfers as well. You have JoJo Evans, who was impressive in 2023 at Kent State. Was even better this past season at FIU, being very good versus the run. Pretty quality in coverage as well. Corey Gordon saw extensive action in 2 years at Baylor, but he struggled heavily in coverage. Dave McCullough, also on roster, didn't play last year and only has 5 snaps in his career. They return a great starter in D'Angelo Hutchinson. He's going to be the leader here. He was one of the top run defenders in the country from his safety spot and was also sound in coverage. Really think this secondary can improve. I like some of the ads at corner. I think the safety group is great run defenders. The prowess really stands out there, but coverage abilities might just be average for those safeties, Nick. I really don't know how much they can grow. I definitely think they will be better, but by what margin, I'm not sure. I'd like to see them at least, do more than 10 interceptions, and I think if we can see increased playmaking, which, most of these came across the final 4 games of the season, we need to see more consistency when it comes to that playmaking, and I think we'll see it, but to what tune?
Yeah, we need some more consistency, certainly. I think Hutchinson is a great player, really good tackler at safety, 52 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 pass breakups. He was sound in coverage. He was a great run defender as well. One of the better in the conference in that regard. Antonio Watts was solid against the run as well. 51 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 4 pass breakups for him. They brought in a lot of different pieces from the portal here that I think are very interesting. Rodney Johnson coming in from Southern and SF Austin. He was really good at Southern last year. He's going to try and make the jump up here. Curious to see how he jumps up to the next level. Jacksonville State's Jabari Mack comes in, 32 total tackles, 2 picks, and 11 pass breakups last year. He was really good for the Gamecocks. Excited to see him step up at this level. Justin Agu from Louisiana was not bad, 36 total tackles, 4 pass breakups, 2 tackles for loss last year. He's a guy that's a pretty solid hard hitter. JoJo Evans was solid at FIU last year. 93 total tackles is a very impressive number. 2 picks, 7 pass breakups for him. He's a good coverage asset and a sound tackler, although FIU's defense was getting gashed a lot, so that may lead to some increased tackle numbers. They bring in also another interesting piece in Corey Gordon from Baylor, 34 total tackles, 2 pass breakups, 3 picks last year. He had some solid production in that regard. Joseph Jefferson comes in from Purdue / Western Michigan, 31 total tackles for him. He wasn't really that great at his previous stops. I like that they added some guys with some interceptions there. They certainly need to find a way to get that number higher here. Overall, I like what they return. They were bad last year at times. 100th in the nation is not a good number. I like that they have 2 solid returning starters in Hutchinson and Watts, and they add some interesting pieces out of the portal. This unit should progress, but the question is how much? Can they make a leap that's really that noticeable? Gonna have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting here. If you look at the stats, they had 2 interceptions through the first 2 weeks. Then they went 7 games without a single one. And then they finally started a streak of getting 8 over the last 4, which started mid-November. It's got to be better, Nick, especially when you're playing the likes of Clemson, who I know you beat, Miami, SMU, Notre Dame. Those were close games against every single one of those opponents that I just named. All those 3 of those teams were some of the best in the country. So if you could have come up with 1 or 2 more turnovers, they would have won those games. They probably would have been in the playoff.
Turnovers flip the field massively for you. That can really put you at a net positive immediately here. And the secondary, they're not returning any interceptions from last year. The only guys coming back with interceptions were 2 from one linebacker, 1 from another linebacker. So you got to find a way to get production out of these new guys that are coming in. Force some fumbles, get some interceptions. That could really be a big swing here, really get some nice momentum going your way.
Now look at the defensive verdict for Louisville. The Cardinals' defense wasn't all that good in conference play, but were impressive versus the likes of Pitt, Jack State, Notre Dame. So finding better consistency will be key in really taking that next step. I think the defensive line and the linebacker groups are impressive, and the secondary should be better, improved due to some of the ads in the portal. The run defense was not as dominant as I thought it would be last year, and improving that area is going to do wonders for them. Quality group that a lot of teams would, I think, beg for. B for me, Nick, I think this defense has a lot of potential, but at times last year they really did disappoint, and that kind of stunned me.
Yeah, this is certainly a defense with a good amount of potential, but I think potential is the key word. Can they hit that potential that they have? The D-line, I think, is really strong. They added some interesting pieces. That could be really good. Wesley, Bailey, Clev, Lubin are really good adds. The linebacking core, I love what they return. Your top 2 tacklers, getting them back is always nice. You have some solid depth in that position as well. I look at the secondary. I like some of the pieces. I think Antonio Watts is great. D'Angelo Hutchinson are great, but I'm questioning a lot of the other transfers. Can they step up and be solid here? They're good players on paper, coming from various destinations, but can they all gel together and be really strong? The secondary was a weakness last year. They struggled to get turnovers. They struggled against the pass in conference play. If they can improve against the pass in conference play, cut down that 236.2 pass yards per game number, also probably cut down the points per game number, this team can be contending for a college football playoff spot.
Looking at the schedule and the prediction, I think Louisville will be a very good team this season, and with Brom at the helm defying expectations, it's not unreasonable one bit to think they can reach the playoffs, like you just said, Nick. I really think Moss is going to thrive, and they're going to have a strong run game alongside him to complement him. The defense should improve, but I'm not sure if he'll hit the level it needs to exactly run the table. It's possible this team flops, and if they don't execute in some of the weaker areas, that might happen. But I'm high on the Cards. They play the most crucial games late in the year, which gives them 3 months pretty much of ball to get in shape. They play Clemson on a Friday night in November. I think they win that game. That's going to put them prime in the fold to potentially make the playoffs. I do have them slipping up at Pitt early in the year and then at Miami as well. Again, though, Clemson, SMU, and even a rivalry game against Kentucky is probably going to defy your season, Nick. Other than that, this is a pretty easy schedule. I know you have them beating Pitt. The game against Miami could certainly go either way as well. So it's now or never, maybe you'd think, for Louisville, because this schedule really is prime for them to do damage. And again, you're getting Clemson, who you demolished last year in Death Valley on a Friday night at home with the whole country watching. Great opportunity here for Louisville. I'm rooting for them.
If everyone wants to talk about sleepers, they want to talk about what team could come out of nowhere and make some noise here. I think Louisville's in a prime position to make some noise. Maybe not necessarily come out of nowhere, but they can certainly come in and make some noise. I think Jeff Brom's a great coach. He got himself a great quarterback in Miller Moss. He has a strong defense that if they play up to their full potential, they'll dominate in this conference, and an offense with a great running back room and some interesting weapons at pass catcher. I like the coaching. I like the setup. The fan base is very strong, and the support in Louisville is great. Very nice stadium they have up there in northern Kentucky, just south of the state border. To the north of them, overall, this is a schedule that's pretty cut and dry. I think JMU is an interesting game, as that's a team that I think could be really good out of the G5, but you should still be able to win that. Kentucky, they're probably one of the worst SC teams this year, the second worst SC team, so that should be a pretty easy win in the rivalry game. Outside of that, though, you're right. You get some of your tougher games in the second half of the season. You get Clemson at home. You beat Clemson last year, but you did it in Death Valley. You beat them in their place. Can you beat them at home? I think it's certainly possible. I'm not going to pull the trigger on that right now, but I would not be surprised at all come November 14th if the Cardinals win that game. You already won against them on the road. Should be pretty easy to beat them at home. They absolutely stomped Clemson last year. I think they can find a way to replicate some of that success. They might have the Tigers' number if all goes their way. I think the Pitt game's tough. It's tough to travel up there into Pittsburgh, a very tough environment as well. But I think they find a way to win that game at Miami. Should be difficult, as that is a revamped offense that should be pretty solid under their new signal caller. Overall, though, I like the future with Louisville here. I think they're in a really good spot, and they've brought in some really talented players out of the portal. They brought in some talented players in the high school levels in some of these early classes for Jeff Brom. I think Brom's a phenomenal coach that has a really good roster here and find themselves in a good position. I don't know if I'm going to go playoffs right now, but I think they're certainly going to be in the conversation come December to find themselves in a playoff spot. They'll be one of those teams that's getting into that heated discussion for the last one or two spots come the end of the season. Overall, I'm quite high on this team. I think they're very talented across the board and put themselves in a very good position with a very favorable schedule to make some noise and compete for a college football playoff spot.
Yeah, if they have more than one or two losses come that game against Clemson, Nick, it's going to be laughable because that should not happen. I mean, who are they going to lose to? This schedule is that easy. It would certainly be very disappointing if that's the case because they should be in the thick of the fold here fighting for a battle. And if CFB's like it was last year, with all the chaos and all the teams losing, they should firmly be able to lock up a playoff spot. So very excited for Louisville this year. Any final thoughts on that?
They should certainly be in discussion. I mean, when you look at the schedule, they should find themselves in a great position come November 14th to have one, max 2 losses. I think if you have 2 losses, you got to run the table, obviously, if you want to get in consideration for the playoff. But if you only have 1 loss come November 14th, you're in a very good spot. If you could run the table there, you will certainly be in the playoff. If you only lose one of those games, you probably still have a pretty good shot at 10-2 with a loss in the tail end of the season. I like what the Cardinals can do. I think they're in a very interesting spot here. We'll see how the committee ends up treating it, obviously, when push comes to shove, because the strength of schedule won't be phenomenal for the Cardinals. I know they talk about that a lot. I really hate those conversations, but those are conversations we'll get to in the future. Quite high on this team for now. My message to them is go out and win your games, get the job done, and you'll find yourselves in a very good position.
That's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.